Dear Democratic National Committee, climate change is far from a single issue, and here's why. Climate justice is racial justice. 68% of African Americans live within 30 miles of a coal-fired power plant. Black kids and children of color have 20% higher levels of asthma than white kids. Why is that? Because of institutional racism and because of environmental racism, and that low-income communities and communities of color are put towards oil and gas areas because communities of color are funded less and cared about less. Climate justice is racial justice. Climate justice is gender justice. Detrimental effects of climate justice are often felt in floods, in cyclones, in natural disasters, things of the sort. And in many third world countries, it will be women who are going out and who are providing and who are gathering water. And in India with heat waves and where water is disappearing, and in other third world countries with where the heat is rising and natural disasters are on the rise, that just doesn't work. Women make up a majority of the world's poor, in addition, and therefore have a higher exposure to pollution. Women farmers make up 45 to 80% of all farmers and food producers in developing countries. That means when there are droughts, when there are famines, when there is food safety and security issues, women will be the most hit. Climate change is a food security issue. Extreme weather events will cause more damaging of foods, which will mean that there will be need for a higher response of food delivery, and it will just end in a cycle where food is being damaged and homes are being destroyed and people go hungry and people need food, and the cycle continues. In addition, major floods, especially here in Ohio, are gravely affecting farmers because farmers, when their crops, climate change causes two very common extremes for farming, which are massive droughts, in which you can't get anything planted, or massive floods, which you can't get anything planted because you can't get any water, and you have too much water and all of your crops are drowning. It will affect the poverty, especially in inner city communities, because of their farmers not being able to produce food, and then the people who are hungry will get even hungrier, and that will most affect inner city communities and communities of color because of institutional racism, which comes back to climate change. Climate change is an economic issue. Everyone is focusing on the cost of green policies like the Green New Deal, but we have to focus on what will be the cost of continuous natural disasters and wildfires and homes being destroyed, and what will be the emotional cost. How many more people have to die before we start acting? It will cost less money to act now and prevent further climate change than it will to try and account for every climate disaster that will inevitably happen once the worst effects of the climate crisis set in 11 years. Are we just going to wait 11 years and then try to adapt? That will cost way more money. The money we will be spending then will be preventative measures for future climate change. It will be adaptation measures to try and protect from already occurring floods. It will be restoration for families whose homes or whose lives have been lost. It will be the money that will be cost for lots and lots of cities that are being flooded or being gravely affected by natural disaster. We need a climate debate because you cannot talk about climate refugees and systemic and environmental racism and green policies and climate education in schools and foreign policy and climate change and green infrastructure and green cars and green buses You can't talk about that in 14 minutes. In the past 2 nights of debates, we got 15 minutes. 15 minutes to talk about a crisis that intertwines with every aspect of our life. That's not enough. Tom Perez, everyone at the DNC, you have continuously taken fossil fuel money. You have continuously ignored the grave realities of the climate crisis. The least you can do is give our potential leaders 2 hours to talk about how they're going to fix this mess. Thank you for listening.